guys, welcome back to the channel where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. I've had a few requests to look into the case of Amber Spradlin, and I started looking into it, and it's crazy. Of course, a lot of the cases we cover here on the channel are crazy. So I'm going to give you guys the backstory on it, and I'm still looking a lot more into it. I've already been able to dig up a bunch of stuff in the last few days, and let me tell you what, I think that law enforcement's doing some good work, but I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes as well. This is Amber Spradlin here on the left, and on the right is a prominent dentist from the area, Dr. Michael McKinney. And he not only is a dentist in the area, he's also the owner of the restaurant, the Brick House, where Amber worked as a waitress hostess. So he does very well for himself. Let's put it that way. Amber Spradlin was murdered at the home of a well-known dentist in Floyd County on June 18th, 2023. She was found stabbed 11 times after a night out with some friends, or let's put it this way, people she thought were her friends. Reminds me a lot of the Noah case that I just covered on the channel. Her murder is described by Kentucky police as a violent assault with too many factors involved for police to make a quick arrest. And here we are, tomorrow is May 1st, and they don't seem to be any closer to an arrest. So it goes to show you how complicated this case truly is. Now, 5 people were at the home the morning of Amber's death, and this is the home of the dentist, Dr. Michael McKinney, and one of those 5 people was his college-aged son. So what it sounds like is there's 5 people plus Amber, but it hasn't been completely cleared up if Amber was the 5th person or there was 5 plus Amber. That one I'm not 100% sure on. If anybody does know that, please let me know in the comments. Dr. McKinney called 911 around 10 a.m. on June 18th to report a young female was lying dead in his Floyd County home. He described a bloody crime scene and obvious wounds to Miss Spradlin's body. Judge Executive Robbie Williams wrote in a letter to the Attorney General. Now, the medical examiner's report identified multiple stab wounds on Miss Spradlin's body, one of which severed her spinal cord. It was a violent assault, according to Williams, and he requested that a special prosecutor be appointed to this case. Now, the dentist, again, is a prominent figure in Floyd County with significant long-standing ties to several elected county officials. Williams expressed his concern relating to the statement and actions of these elected officials during the investigation. So, while we think there might be some alleged corruption or cover-up, it's not alleged to be that from the Kentucky police or on law enforcement. This may be in other areas. I don't know if it could be the DA's office, but definitely elected officials in that county. Now, the case facts at this point are a 911 call was made in the early hours of June 18th to the Floyd County 911 dispatch center, but no responders came to the scene. So there's a whole issue with the 911 system in Floyd County. It has to do with they were moving calls to a nearby county. But if you call 911, they are supposed to do a welfare check. That's pretty commonplace. Someone else came on the line and stated everything was fine and they didn't need any help. We don't know if there was just no law enforcement available to come to the scene or if they just didn't come. That part is not known, but nobody did come to that home. Nobody came to Dr. McKinney's home after that 911 call. Several other calls were made to prominent figures at the same time as the 10 a.m. call to 911 to report Amber's death. So later on, at 10 a.m., Dr. McKinney, this is confirmed that he called 911 to report her death. Also, prominent figures were also called. So what was going on? Who else do you need to call besides, 911 and potentially her family? Very, very suspicious. Dr. McKinney was at the home along with his son, like we said previously, a person named Roy Kidd, and several others at that time. Dr. McKinney left town for a few days after the murder. So he just left. The police chief of the Prestonsburg City Police abruptly resigned his post not long after this death. Another suspicious situation in this case. Again, I think it has to do with potential corruption in other areas, but not necessarily the investigators and law enforcement working her actual case. I think there's others that may be trying to influence in that way because of potentially this dentist. Her family, though, does trust the police on this. So we have to be careful with just putting out there that the police are the issue, because that's not being suspected at all at this point. Video footage from some cameras have details, but none have been released to the public at this time. Now, KSP and the lab are still testing DNA in this case, and apparently it was quite a bloody scene, as you can imagine. 11 stab wounds to her head, her face, her neck. Very, very horrific scene. Infighting over the ownership of the 911 dispatch has diverted the attention away from the fact that a woman, Amber, was brutally murdered and that no arrests have been made. So we have the murder of Amber, and then 911, they're going back and forth going, nope, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. Meanwhile, you have a 38-year-old woman brutally murdered, and there's no answers for her family yet. Floyd County hired outside legal counsel to defend them in the event they are sued over this incident. That's another telling part, because the whole 911 situation, they're very, very, very concerned that it's going to cost them a lawsuit. And I think that they probably are correct. You don't call 911 and expect they're just not going to show up. Now, her family has stated they have heard the 911 call. Spradlin's cousin, Dr. Debbie Hall, she has been able to listen to the 911 call, the one that was made earlier before the 10 a.m. call reporting Amber's death. She has informed the media that the phone call was not about Amber and it was not made by Amber. But she still believes information in that phone call, she feels that it had been anywhere else, that this would have been a response. Something would have been done. There would have been a welfare check. So basically she's alluding to, because it was this prominent doctor, this dentist, that maybe it was shrugged off and written off. The call apparently was about a man in the home who was drunk and was bleeding profusely, maybe from a fall. According to Debbie Hall, she stated that in the call, someone else can be heard taking the phone and stating that they had the situation under control. So the bottom line as far as that earlier initial 911 call was, if there was something starting to brew in that house, if there was fighting, other issues, if law enforcement would have showed up for a welfare check, that could have saved Amber's life. And I think that that's very, very possible.
During the course of this investigation, investigators with Kentucky State Police have interviewed several members of the community and executed numerous search warrants on different residences, electronic devices, collecting physical evidence along with DNA evidence. All the evidence has been transported to the KSP laboratories, and we're currently awaiting the results of the evidence. Any credible information that anyone may have about this investigation, we would really like to talk to you. So if you have any information that is credible, please call us at 606-433-7711. We would like to add that every tip that comes in or any bit of information that these detectives receive, they have to look into to make sure they're as thorough as possible.
And this is a local affiliate, WHSA 11, over there in Kentucky. And they looked into this case. This video was done back 10 months ago. So this was early on in the case. And they found out a lot of information considering the very little we know even to this day.
According to state police, the 39-year-old was found dead in a home on Arkansas Creek earlier this month. That's about 4.5 hours from Louisville in Floyd County, Kentucky. Kentucky State Police troopers confirmed she had life-threatening injuries, and they do suspect foul play, meaning they're working it as a homicide investigation. Well, today, the victim's family is asking for support as they go on 10 days without an arrest in the case and without answers as to why it took so long for the 911 call to be heard.
June 18th, families say Amber Spradlin was with friends and her boss, people she trusted. Only hours later, she was discovered dead, her family describing the brutal attack on the steps of the courthouse in Floyd County.
She was stabbed not once, not twice, not 3 times. She was stabbed at least 11 times in her head, her neck, and her throat.
Kentucky State Police is working the case but staying tight-lipped. The family's attorney believes they have their suspect, but because the crime scene was so gruesome, DNA evidence has been difficult to separate in the lab.
There was blood everywhere, and there was blood that was mixed with other blood and other DNA.
Families say Amber lost her parents when she was young. She was raised by her grandparents and in turn cared for them until the end, only recently moving out to start a life on her own. They don't know why anyone would want to hurt her. They also don't know why it took first responders so long to find her and help.
I just don't know what in the world would have gone so wrong to result in what happened. But there was a 911 call and no one went.
The community has been calling the county's 911 dispatch system into question since Amber's death. The attorney says it took first responders hours to find Amber.
Oh, but she's not forgotten. Don't cover up.
The mayor of Prestonsburg addressed the issue at a town meeting earlier this week, saying the town has its own 911 call center, funded by and focused on the town. Because this call came from the county, it was sent to the KSP dispatch center, and according to the attorney, lost between the lines.
Can you imagine being Amber Spradlin in that house that night, realizing that no one was going to be coming? She didn't know that, but nobody came.
Now, as they wait for word on the killer, family is also hoping to get answers on the 911 system.
Friends, family, community, that meant everything to Amber.
Hoping no one else has to suffer alone.
You shouldn't call, or someone shouldn't call 911 and they never come. That is a very, very big problem in this case. Not only was this lady, this woman, brutally murdered, but a call earlier in the evening was ignored, basically. Why? This is the year, this happened in 2023. You should never feel like you call for help from law enforcement and it falls on deaf ears. That should never happen. You should call 911 and be checked on. Regardless of if the phone call was hung up on, someone comes on the line and goes, "Oh, everything is fine, don't worry." I mean, how often does that happen? You know, you're being beat up by a boyfriend, someone else, you're having a domestic dispute, whatever. You shouldn't come on, somebody shouldn't come on the phone and say to the dispatcher, Oh, ignore what that person just told you. Everything is perfectly fine because I'm trustworthy. Yeah, no. They should have sent officers to that home to check on the welfare of every person present, which it sounded like at least 5 people from what we're being told. At least 5 people were in that home that night. They apparently had an evening out after Amber got off work. She worked at the restaurant for the dentist that he owned. They all had an evening out, apparently. His friends, or people she thought were friends, they obviously were friends of his. And then they ended up back at his house. That I don't know how that happened, but someone always says, hey, let's go over to my house and let's continue the party. And she, thinking, I'm sure, that they were friends, said, hey, sure, why not? Why would she have to worry if these were co-workers, people she thought she knew? And then when someone calls for help, claiming someone else in the house is bleeding, it falls on deaf ears. And then at 10 a.m., a second 911 call comes in, and it's the doctor, Mr. Dentist, saying, someone here is dead. Yeah, 911 royally screwed up. It cost Amber her life. They are at much as fault as whoever actually stabbed her to death. Whether it was one person, 2 people, whatever. In my opinion, there was 5 people in that house. At least one, potentially others, were involved in her death. They brutally killed her. And stabbing someone 11 times? 11 times? That is rage. You don't just stab someone more than once or twice unless you are in a rage. Something occurred. Somebody was drunk. Somebody got upset with her. Whatever. There's a story there that we don't know. What happened in that home? Well, sounds to me like Mr. Dentist, he knows. His son, his college-age son, which I'm sure he's protecting all the way to the end, he knows. And 3 other folks know. And someone needs to talk. It is driving me insane with how many of these cases involve parties, events, and then everyone closes their mouth, says nothing. Just happened with Noah. I believe that someone in that party or folks were involved in his death, because that wasn't an accident. And Amber's death is a homicide as well. These people were brutally murdered. And it's disgusting that someone, just because he's a prominent dentist in the area and he's quote unquote so well respected and has all these connections and what have you, that he feels as though I can do whatever I want and not suffer the consequences. Well, I think that that's going to end for you. I think Dr. McKinney, I think he either is involved or he saw it happen. It's his home. It's his house. If a murder happens in your home and you're present and you don't talk, there's something very, very wrong with that. And for him to just allegedly call all these elected official friends in the area, secretive calls, which I'm hoping law enforcement has, whoever the hell he's called, has that information, while they're waiting for all their DNA to come back. And then he leaves town. That's not suspicious at all, Dr. McKinney. It's really not. So why did you or these 4 other people in that home, why did you all kill Amber? What was so horrible that happened in that home that summer night? What was so horrible that she said she did? Maybe she wouldn't do something that was asked of her. I don't know. There's lots of possibilities. What did she do or not do that caused her death? And again, the 911 call situation, that just pisses me off, and I understand her family being up in arms about it, because I do believe that that could have helped her. The failures on the part of law enforcement, 911 first responders, they are our first line of defense. I mean, again, you should be able to call 911 and get someone on the other line that's coming to help you. And that just never happened for Amber. Whatever happened in that house, at some point she realized she was on her own. And how scary is that? How scary. She must have been terrified. And I'm sure she fought. She fought brutally until the end. I'm sure she did. She didn't deserve any of that, what happened. She didn't deserve it at all. Alright, guys. Let me know what you think of this one. I'm looking a lot more into it. There is a Facebook group for Amber. I will link to it in the information of the video. And I'm going to see what else I can get on this. Because this one has my attention now. It really, really does. She's getting local coverage. But we need to help her get justice. We're out here, share her story. We need to share this story because someone like Dr. McKinney, Mr. Pearly Whites, or whatever we want to call him, he obviously feels like he's in a bubble. Because I don't think that he's innocent at all. If he's not involved, if he didn't actually do it, he knows. He was there. And you can't tell me that it was quiet. I don't believe that for a second. Alright, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the day. And most of all, stay safe.